Everyone has a story.
It's hard to put into words what you experience. Very few of us want to.
Some take longer to tell than others.
War is not something you want to brag about.
For 37 veterans, their stories are more than 70 years in the making. And now a trip across the country could add a new chapter to a book that few can understand.
You get more guys together, there's a common bond we've all in the military. You know, there's a commonality there. It's like I don't want to say really a family, but you know, there's a lot of connection.
Kansas Honor Flight number 73. 5 Korean War veterans, 32 who served in Vietnam, representing each branch of the military, embarking on a trip with a simple mission: to make sure each veteran gets the opportunity to see their war memorial in person.
I expect probably a lot of emotion. I think everybody that I've talked to that has seen like the Vietnam Wall said you can't walk away without crying. And I'm not too surprised with that.
But the 3-day trip goes beyond the black granite on the National Mall. An untold mission of healing, uncovering wounds that have been patched with bandages worn since the battles that earned them.
You go through the day with it, you go to bed with it. It's just 24/7.
37 strangers board a plane from Wichita bound for Baltimore.
But we thank y'all so much for the freedoms that we have, and I just thank you guys so much.
And land on the East Coast as brothers. This welcome home is just the start of what's to come. The kickoff for Kansas Honor Flight Day 1. A parade of heroes through the airport with roaring applause at every turn.
Oh man, what a reception.
That was
Yeah, that was really something.
You know, it's the welcome we didn't get.
It's a reception that unfortunately feels foreign to these veterans who, when they returned home from war, received just the opposite.
Silence. Mine wasn't as bad. Some guys were called names, yelled at, spit on.
Well, when you're over there, you're doing your job. Coming back was a different story. You just didn't want to be around, should I say, someone other than your own comrades.
Now, once again, surrounded by comrades, led to a bus that would take them to our first stop, Fort McHenry.
Take her up, all the way to the top.
It puts a little chill in your body.
Our first day ending with a flag raising at the birthplace of our national anthem. A song with deep meaning for every veteran on the trip, but it brings up distinct memories of one man's return from war.
Our ship pulled into 32nd Street Naval Station in San Diego, went to Pier 1, and they had flags and bunting, and they had a band there, and they played the national anthem. And I just started crying because I was so glad to be alive.
I think our country is important enough for us to serve when we're called, and I volunteered.
Volunteered, drafted, enlisted.
You knew it was coming. You knew it was coming. That's probably the best way to put it.
37 Kansas veterans left their homes to serve their country, sitting next to men they had never met, unsure of their return.
Very somber. That's probably the best way to put it. I wanted to come back in as good a shape as I could.
The experiences are like everyone else. It's all varied. I know a lot of them that went through a lot more than I did. I know a lot of them that went through a lot less than I did. But everyone carries that with them.
Those memories revisited on Kansas Honor Flight Day 2.
All the memorials for the wars, it's just too bad we have to have wars to have memorials, but that's the way things go.
From Baltimore to D.C., an afternoon to visit the war memorials built in their honor. Starting with a World War II memorial, remembering family, friends, and fathers who served before them. then making their way to the Korean War Memorial. 19 statues standing tall, reflecting double in the black granite beside them, symbolic of the 38th parallel and the 38 months of war. Finally, a stop at a black granite wall etched with more than 58,000 names of Americans who sacrificed their lives while serving our country.
You wouldn't think a piece of granite and that would make you that emotional, but it can.
Some knowing they have many names to search for.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yep, there will be. And you can't see them all. You know, there's not enough time to see them all.
And some searching for someone specific.
I've got a rubbing of a student of mine that was killed in Vietnam, and kind of special just getting to see that. As I understand, he was killed about 2 weeks after he got off the plane in Vietnam.
It took me a long time to get to where I would go up and look for people's names on it. And today I looked and found another guy's name that I knew that was killed in Vietnam.
Their experiences allow them to catch things that the average person just walking through would miss.
Probably 90% of the guys in Vietnam put a dog tag in their boots, so in case something happened to them, they would more easily be identified, because it was easy to lose the one that was around your neck, or papers that you would carry, anything like that might disappear. But if you lost your boot, that's probably a pretty serious problem. There was better chances of you being identified with that dog tag in that boot than any other way that we had of soldiers in Vietnam, and it was a very common practice.
We're pretty fortunate. We made it through after seeing all those names, you know, on there.
Those names that would never come home, that would never have the opportunity to go on an honor flight themselves, read aloud at the National Air Force Memorial for a Spirit flight in their honor.
Hank Renolette, Navy, Korea. Ronald Martin, Army, Korea. Ken Martin.
Then to a tribute for the names we don't know. 4 veterans laying a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier.
Reset! Honor!
The wreath made for each trip by a veteran and his wife, both from Colby, Kansas.
You stop and think there's 400,000 soldiers buried in Arlington Cemetery. There's a national cemetery in Normandy where there's another 77,000. And there's national cemeteries all over the country where the veterans are buried. You know, and they gave the ultimate sacrifice.
We got married on Saturday. I got drafted on Monday and I enlisted on Tuesday. Something like that.
Eugene Pearson, 19 years old, living in Topeka, Kansas.
A lot of that stuff that you were seeing on TV in the news was very fresh in my mind. Yeah.
He knew what was coming, so he started talking with a recruiter to join the U.S. Army and would become an ammunition storage specialist.
You know, it's one of those things where you think you're getting something that's going to be maybe a little safer, but in a war zone, I'm sorry, nothing's safe.
I served 2 different countries.
Ted Hoopmer of Wichita, born in Indonesia and survived time spent as a young boy in a concentration camp during the Japanese invasion. He would immigrate to Holland at the age of 12. That's where his time in the military began.
I got drafted in Holland, the Royal Dutch Marine.
After his time in that service, he would move again in 1956, this time to the United States.
Before they immigrate, they had to sign a piece of paper that says, "You will register for the draft." So I did. Next thing I know, I was back in the service again.
A lot of what we did was nobody knew where we were at or what we were doing. Weren't allowed to ride home.
David Linden, 18 years old, sent to Vietnam to serve in the U.S. Army as an electronics specialist in psychological warfare.
A lot of people think that's sitting behind a desk working, but I never saw a desk. I was out in the field like everybody else, and like I say, a lot of times we were in places that people still don't know where we were at. We didn't know where we were at half the time.
I wish more young people could have the perspective of what it takes to be a free nation.
Doug Koonsman served in the Navy as a communications officer on a destroyer escort in Vietnam.
I happened to be officer of the deck the first time our ship got mortared, and that's when the whole war got real. It was kind of surreal, but then when you see that geyser right off the starboard bow, you thought, man, they're firing real bullets here. And it was sobering. So never forget it.
Just a few of the stories that 37 veterans carry with them on Kansas Honor Flight 73. Some don't get shared often, if even at all, and some get shared on this very trip.
My son is actually going to meet us there. He's going to be my guardian. I am looking forward to that, to have him there with me.
You don't pass up on a trip to do that with your parents. I may have passed up with that when I was 15, 16, but now I'm a little bit older and he's a little bit older, and those opportunities are few and far between.
Riding on his motorcycle from Georgia to D.C., Jeff Pearson is about to experience his father's war memorial by his side.
He never really spoke much about his service. I know he served. He had his jacket, but he didn't bring it up.
A lot of people.
He's still very, very quiet, but he tells some stories, and I know in the right atmosphere he can be a little more open about it.
That atmosphere surrounding the veterans on this trip who put their lives on the line for America.
I have 3 children, and I always want them to live in a country, that's had freedom. And I felt like other countries, they don't have the freedom what they have here. And the sky's the limit. If you want, I just love it. I just love it.
And I'd do it again. I'd do it again. I love this country.
And even in the face of fear and darkness, they continued strong.
You have to go on, you cannot, oh, I still have some little nightmares, but you just have to go on.
They like to say it makes a man out of you, and I'm not sure it does, but it certainly matures you.
Coming home from war, forever changed after tremendous sacrifice. What should have been celebrations and a warm welcome.
There really wasn't much. There really wasn't.
The exact opposite for many of the veterans of Kansas Honor Flight 73.
Yeah, you get really frustrated with the anti-war demonstrators because, needless to say, very few of us wanted to go.
Some guys were called names, yelled at, spit on.
This is the other half of the mission for Kansas Honor Flight. First, to send our veterans on a trip to D.C. to see their war memorial, but to also bring them back and make sure they get the welcome home they may have never received.
They need to be honored. When my husband was in, they were not honored that well.
To my Vietnam veterans, when you guys came home, times were different. You never received the welcome home that you deserved. So gentlemen, this is your welcome home, so welcome home.
He's really happy, and I'm just grateful that he got to go.
A welcome home and healing.
This has been great. I mean, this is, it's like 50 years in the making, more or less. It's been great. It kind of washes away a lot of that, maybe bad memories or whatever.
Reflecting on the trip of a lifetime.
And the people, the camaraderie, just sitting down and talking to people. It's like old home week. if everybody in our society, just think, if Congress could be like this group of veterans, it would be wonderful.
And I'm proud to have served. Something I look back on with pride. I think some people actually regret doing it, but I never did.
God bless America. But I love this country and the people of this country. It's that's what it's all about, is helping secure freedom for everybody.
Somebody said that if you want to thank a veteran, live a life worthy of them dying for you and be part of the solution rather than part of the problem. And I think if we all did that, the world would be a whole lot better place.